bunch of channels by you guys, and I'm seeing, the stuff that I'm choosing not to cover, but some of the stuff you guys are recommending me, it's like, dude, making you want to roll your eyes. Like, you guys are taking advice from a dude that's like 24 years old.
We got Legion of Men here. That's the YouTube channel we're reacting to today. He's got this video. Men are not helping women anymore, and they are furious about it. So far in the video, this woman was talking about how men don't buy her drinks anymore at the bar or wherever, and how men are, I guess, are supposed to do that. First of all, men never do that. I've bought women drinks a couple of times, random women at bars. The only times it ever really goes well is if you're already vibing anyway, so it's kind of redundant. The bars I like to go to, I don't like these packed bars where there's tons of people. In fact, I really despise those kind of club situations entirely. I like, hole in the wall bars. And usually, if I'm going to be buying a woman a drink, then she's already like, at my table with me and whoever I'm there for, or maybe me and a buddy like join somebody else's table kind of situation where we're already vibing and there's already a lot being built up. But yeah, just buying random women drinks. I've seen so many other guys do it and get and it just not go well at all. Like, women don't care. Like, if a woman's gonna hook up with you because you buy her like 10, 15, $20 worth of beer, then that's probably not a woman you want to hook up with ever.
Doesn't even know who he is, let alone have any experience with women. Any decent, mature woman is enthralled in hookup culture, works an hourly wage with very little experience or investment in himself, dealing out information as if he's some arbiter of truth on the subject matter. It's mind blowing. It's blind leading the blind.
So he's talking about these kind of like red pill content creators, which I think he kind of is, but he's kind of more in the Denmo camp where he's not this like weirdo uh, people giving bad advice, right? Like, I like to point to the Fresh and Fit podcast as being some of the worst advice for men possible. Obviously, they do occasionally put out like a generally good message, like go to the gym, eat healthy, get your life in order. But that's really just advice for the most like disastrous of men, the worst of the worst, the people who have no idea where to start and are looking for answers on the most basic of fundamentals. And that's just not the majority of men. The majority of men are like not really in that scenario. They're kind of like in between that and being like totally normal, like a normal guy who's not that great at talking to women. Situations like that, this whole like red pill community typically, it's kind of like the dating red pill community. It's different than just the general red pill community because that has more to do with society. This ties into just dating. And a lot of these guys just give awful advice, like Fresh and Fit. I'll go a little deeper. Why is their advice so bad? Well, the women they have on their show are like Instagram models, OF models. Would any of you guys out there really, honestly, truly like to date any of those women? Like tatted up, hyper focused on their follower count on Instagram and their self image that they're putting out there. Like, these are not women who are looking for serious relationships at all, even a little bit, which makes it comical when the hosts of that podcast talk about how if they're in a relationship with a woman, that woman can't have Instagram. They can't like talk to men ever, ever. And if you're trying to do that, especially to like a 20-year-old Instagram model, they're still going to do it anyway. I guarantee you those guys have been cheated on in like every relationship they've been in, right? Because that fundamental premise of I'm going to control you and you're going to not talk to anyone unless I approve, that always backfires. That just shows a huge amount of insecurity. um, and that's just bizarre. Like, why would you want that kind of control over somebody? A woman's gonna the times the women that I've dated where they've been the less sketchy the most loyal is when I just don't even care. Like I don't even treat it like it's a thing, right? Because they're gonna feel comfort in the fact that you're not worried about that. Because the making yourself worried about that kind of stuff is going to be a huge turnoff and it's going to lead to them cheating on you. But there's all kinds of content creators out there who are making this similar garbage content, um, and it's just isn't good. We'll see what else that Legion of Men has to say.
Unfortunately, really, we're suffering from the same thing they are on the other side. You know how those women are giving advice to other women? That's absolutely terrible. That's absolutely keeping them single. There are dudes in this space that are giving men advice, like the advice he gave, are giving men the same styled advice for men that are keeping men single, that are keeping men bitter and angry.
All right. Furthermore, why that kind of advice is bad and what he means by it's keeping them single and angry is what do those guys really tell you to care about? They tell you to care about the approval of like 20-year-old Instagram models, which I just explained to you why you don't want to date them. You, I don't care if you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s. Like, unless you're in your 50s and 60s and you're just like, YOLO, I don't give a crap who I date. Like, you've given up on the idea of a honest, decent relationship, then yeah, go for it. Or if you're just looking to have fun, go for it. But anyone looking for a real relationship, you don't want to date those types of people. And they kind of dive too deep, right? Like it's great to self improve, but these guys go like crazy hyper focused on it. Like you need to be grinding all day every day. Like look, dude. All right, if you're Rob Deerdeck wakes up at 5 a.m. every morning and just works like a lunatic. And yeah, he makes like hundreds of millions of dollars. He's incredibly rich. You don't need to be that rich. That will make you unrich. That will make you poor in spirit. That will demolish your mental health. You're not happy. You're not truly rich, right? Now, Rob Deerdeck is a bad example because he seems like a fun-loving, funny, smiley, happy guy, and I'm sure he's a great dude. And he must get a lot of fulfillment from that. But most people know, like, you're not Rob Deerdeck. You are not. And so many of these other people, they're just working. They hyper focus on working. So even if they were to get in a relationship, or they do get in a relationship, um, maybe they're in one now or whatever, they will focus way too much on work. Like their relationship fundamentally cannot be good because they can't put very much effort into it because they're so focused on this self improvement. I'm sorry, but it's not improving yourself. The Fresh and Fit podcast, so many other people, they tell you, these men, that what they need to be focused on more than anything is how big their bank account is. It's just making more and more and more money. And then it's so bizarre because they'll have these women on and point out to these women that they're being delusional by wanting a man who makes like 200,000, 300,000, 500,000 a year, and that because that's such a tiny percentage of men. But then they also tell men that they need to focus entirely on like getting to the point of being in the top 1 percentile of men as far as earning money. That just doesn't make sense. Mathematically, that makes no sense and is bad advice to give men. And that's this bad advice thing is why I made that reaction to Pokemon's podcast. Her advice was horrible. It was like super specific to her, and it isn't even good advice that if she were to give it to herself. She gives constant attention to her haters, but talks about how it's like not a big deal, but it's all she ever talks about. Same thing with like the Fresh and Fit podcast, and I'm just picking on them. I'll keep using them as an example, but like, dude, it's ridiculous. It's absurd. Could you imagine living that life, right? Say you live in Miami, and you're hyper focused just on picking up women and making money. Does that even sound like a good life to anyone? Is that genuinely the life that anyone wants? I've never been to Miami. I'm sure it's a nice place, but could you imagine like going to clubs, like spending your nights doing that? Like to me, that is just hardcore loser behavior. That is nothing close to the life I would ever want. Like I said, I despise like clubs in general, right? I'm sure there's plenty of great stuff to do in Miami other than that, but it's like, geez, get a personality, get some friends, get some hobbies. Like, geez, focus on something else besides just telling men that if they're not making a ton of money, if they're not in like the top 1 percentile or 2 percentile or even 5 percentile, that they're failing as men and that they need to become a high value man. It's crazy, dude. Like this whole thing is just insane. They push this concept of a high value man clearly because it's a grift. It's so obvious, right? Same with Andrew Tate. Um, like Andrew Tate's entire existence is telling you you're not as good as this idea, this concept of the alpha male, of the high value man who's making millions of dollars. It is unrealistic. Mathematically, it's impossible for even anywhere close to like you'd be Andrew Tate's audience would be lucky if even 1% of them ever made it to the top 5 percentile of earning money in terms of men. Just think about it, right? These guys are already behind. They're already lacking. They're already failing. That's why they are that's why they buy into this, right? They want to change. They're desperate to change something, right? These aren't like the top tier men. These aren't the actual alpha males, the guys who have it together, who are figuring things out and are already working to where they want to go. These are specifically people who aren't doing that. So I'm telling you, if 1% of Andrew Tate's audience ever made it to the top 5%, oh man, that would be a miracle. That would be like in like I'm not even that optimistic and I'm a pretty optimistic dude, right? So this whole red pill community is a joke. It's ridiculous. It's these content creators are genuinely giving bad advice, telling guys, "Oh, you need to hit the gym several times a week and get multiple jobs, work yourself to death." That is so dumb. That is the absolute last advice I would ever give you, right? And I can talk to you as somebody who makes a lot of money, right? Somebody who's, a lot closer to that 1% than the huge freaking majority of people, right? That's, I won't get into the specifics of the numbers, but I make a ton of money and I've literally taken pay decreases before because I wanted to work less. You know, the advice I often it will give anybody is like you need to balance your life and work. They call it work life balance. You need to really think about, is the work you're doing worth what you're getting paid? Is it worth eating up this much of your time? And a lot of people, it's hard for them to really consider that. It's a tricky balance to figure out. And I'm telling you the answer, if you think that you going from having your one job to having like four jobs, starting a business, I mean, if you have a great idea, go for it. I actually give people that advice that, hey, there's more ways to make money than ever. And you can diversify your income. But what are your real goals here? Your mental health is way more important than making money. Your own happiness is critical. Never sacrifice that to make more money. Never.
And upset at the other gender. Be very careful, man. As much as they're being drilled with propaganda on the other side, so are we. Always think for yourself. Question my content, question every single person's content you ever watch. Double check facts, do your due diligence, and take little nuggets of wisdom and implement them in your life in your way.
Exactly. That's so well said. Man, I'm telling you, right? Because this giving advice, especially to a large amount of people at once, I don't know you. I don't know the specifics of who you are. And even if I was giving advice to you on an individual basis, I would be prying more information out of you. And it would be really you convincing yourself of what is best for you. I would ask you things like, all right, what are your like 5 main goals in life? Okay, will money help you get to those goals? What is your work situation, right? Because back when I worked more than I do now, I started to realize this is consuming all of my time. All of it. Literally on my days off, I'm often thinking about work, or I was. Work is consuming most of my week. I have to make plans, right? Like I had to adjust my sleep schedule to my changing work schedule. I wasn't sleeping as well. The times when I was awake, say my days off during the week, I just didn't feel right. I felt like a zombie. I felt like I wasn't entirely alive. Like I didn't have enough energy, enough. There was just, I could be up for like 12 hours, but like my brain wasn't able to function as well as it otherwise would have been able to, right? I was putting way too much into my career and it sucked. Living life sucked. And it took like years for me to really realize it, right? Because as soon as one other thing starts to go wrong, you start to realize that what you've been putting yourself through for all this time is actually bad and detrimental. It just takes a few other things happening that force you to reflect. But it's those tiny details that are how we change incrementally. Is if you can change those things before you get to the point of like being in a crisis, before everything comes tumbling down and having to rebuild and make drastic changes quickly. If you can reflect on things beforehand, you'll be in a way better position. And if you watch the Fresh and Fit podcast, they say some funny stuff. They're outrageous. And like I said, getting your life in order is important. But never limit your mind to thinking the only way you can self-improve is to make more money, to work more hours, to get more women, right? Like I've made a lot of money. Who cares? Does that make me better than anyone? No, it doesn't. Does the topic of how much money I make almost like never comes up in my day-to-day life. And if it does, it's other people who bring it up. Because to me, it's not interesting. Yeah, if I made millions of dollars a year, that would be very interesting. And, there would be a lot to talk about there. But usually it never comes up. If it does, I change the subject. Same with like getting women, you know? Like I've literally never struggled with that. Granted, maybe when I was a teenager, it was difficult. But from the time I was like 19 and beyond, oh my God, was it ever not difficult? Because I was friends with a lot of like, girls in the later part of high school and then, right, like women and stuff as I became an adult. So because I just had female friends and treated women as people instantly, it just was always easy. And it's always been easy for me, and I could go on here and brag and say, I've done this and this and that, and it's been so easy for me. But that's the least interesting thing about me. Again, it never comes up. It never comes up. So you got to think about what is really going to make you happy. And do you even have the energy? Do you even want a relationship? If it is in your mind that you want a relationship with an Instagram model, I guarantee you need to reevaluate everything. If it's in your mind that you need to work a lot harder, you need to reevaluate everything and look into how people are making money. Look into how people manage their work-life balance. why people go from high paying, hard working, like long hours to something where they work less. And why does their happiness improve all the time when they do this? When people go out and they soul search and they make changes and they become more happy, why does that work? And yeah, just hope you liked the video. There will be more to come. My coworkers recommended this guy named Dre Drexler. Now, I don't know who Dre Drexler is, but I'm going to search him up and react to his content immediately. They only mentioned that the guy listens to audiobooks at like 3 times speed and then like brags that he reads books. And it just sounds insane. I'm going to see what he's about. So check that out.